the world thrives on new ideas, and in any industry in the world, ideas are very fragile.
Welcome to the Rethink Desi Reframe series, where we challenge conventional narratives about social change, sustainability, and the South Asian community. Join me, your host, Arpita Sharma, each week as I have candid conversations with thought leaders, social entrepreneurs, researchers, activists, and creatives as we uncover the strategies, innovations, and stories behind their efforts to reshape our society. I'm Arpita Sharma, your host, and today we are speaking with Anirudh Rajagopalan, a young Indian-Japanese American music composer, director, songwriter, and performer who is passionate about the various music cultures of the world and integrating them into his own fusions. Anirudh is the music composer for my upcoming short film, The Love Letter, which delves into the complexities of love, cultural identity, and familial expectations, which will be coming out hopefully later this year. In this conversation, we will explore his musical journey, his influences, and the way that he integrates different parts of his identity into his music, his views on collaborating with other artists, the challenges of developing a career as a musician, as well as what guidance he might provide for those of us who are interested in creating music for ourselves. So let's get into it. Can you tell us about your musical journey and how you got started in music? What's inspired you to become a music composer and performer?
So I was born into a family of musicians, so that was really the start I had. I was actually born in a city outside Osaka, Japan. So I lived in Japan for the first part of my life. I spent my toddler years, and I moved to the United States when I turned 7 in 2005. And my mother is a Carnatic vocalist and instrumentalist who really guided me, and her passion is what I will always be grateful for. And as a kid growing up in a first day Japanese international school system, and then later an American school system, I had opportunities to learn several instruments as I was growing up, such as piano, violin, mridangam, and gat. I started learning piano from a teacher in Japan, actually. And then I continued on in the United States for about 9 or 10 years. Yeah, piano and mridangam are the two instruments I play the most. I have a piano in my apartment. I have a concert mridangam around as well. I would also say that playing these instruments also opened the doors for me to learn more about music in terms of the composition, creativity, and performance aspects. For example, like when I was in high school, I played in a school orchestra in the fine arts department and had a couple concerts in high school. And I remember my freshman year being on the biggest stage at that point of my life, and among 70 other talented orchestra members, and performing alongside them, like being on that stage, like the lights shining down on all of us, and the wonderful reception we got from our friends and family, from our community. It was really the culmination of all of these factors that it really energized me to start thinking about composing orchestral works. For Mridangam, I've been performing for over 10 years. I currently learned from one of my first guru's guru, and he's based in Chennai. And for Mridangam, there's a largely creative aspect of it in Carnatic music concerts. So I've been fortunate to work with a number of vocalists and others. In each concert I do, I learn more and more about the performing and creative aspect of Mridangam. And I would say it is the culmination of experiences like these that eventually energized me to take it to the next level. And when I was in college, I started to think more about seeing what I could do with music, because now I could not get opportunities to perform that easily. I went to college in Columbus, Ohio, like the Ohio State University, and there were a lot of South Asian Indian-oriented clubs and organizations out there, especially related to fine arts and performing arts. And I started to think about, okay, where can I fit into all of these things? Where can I actually start making a mark? Like, where can I actually start doing something that I believe is great? So it's really just the perseverance of really taking things to the next level, the perseverance of continuing to do something that I love. I think that's what's propelled my journey so far. And it's not like I've been in the industry for like 10 or 15 years, nothing like that. Like I'm almost 3 years out of college only. So I'm not like that far out into the real world, but being able to have these experiences both in school and college as I was growing up, large part thanks to my parents and teachers who have always and friends who have always believed in me. It's really all of these experiences that really energized me to continue doing this my whole life.
As I'm listening to you, there's a lot of different pieces that I'm kind of taking away from this conversation. The fact that you've kind of grown up in a dual culture household, and you've kind of really taken to the culture of your mother through like picking up the musical instrument. What has it been like walking into a lot of these spaces as a musician coming from that dual cultural background?
I would say, like, if you come from a dual culture background, you raise yourself with more of an open mind, I would say, because the more you're exposed to something, I'd say the more open minded you become. Carnatic music definitely has its unique aspects, its wonderful, rich traditions and all. But being raised in a dual environment where I was learning Western music outside and then Carnatic music from my mother, sometimes mostly not directly, mostly indirectly, because she runs a large Carnatic music school. Even today, and she's been an amazing teacher for the last decade and a half now. Being exposed to those two different environments, it actually encourages somebody with an open mind to think about how can, what do these two different worlds have in common? Like, what do these different what can one possibly do with knowledge from both worlds? And Carnatic music, by default, it's never been the type of music that where it's not been like as accepting in terms of like you're not gonna see like a electric guitar being playing gamakas and swaras, like two of the largest attributes of Carnatic music. It's highly unlikely. I've never seen that before in my life. And when people think about the things that they haven't seen, they start to think about how can they make it seen? How can they make it possible? And a decade ago, when I attended the Cleveland Tyagaraja Aradhana, I was a regular participant there. The Cleveland Tyagaraja Aradhana, it's held in Cleveland, Ohio, and by the Cleveland State University, where they have a music department, and they have some events out there that they invite some Western musicians, part of the Cleveland State University, to just participate in the Aradhana and all that. And having events like these really does open up people's minds, because some people won't understand what they will really like until they actually see what they like. The most important thing is to be open minded, like to believe that there's something much bigger out there. And what I've learned over the years is that when I try to write, different types of solfeggi, like I write mainly Western solfeggi, but I've been exposed to Carnatic solfeggi. A major point that I've brought up in previous opportunities is there is a lot of fundamental core concepts that are exactly the same between Carnatic and Western music. It's just the way you notate them, the way you interpret them, the way you execute it, the way you perform it. That is where it starts to differ. Because I can write a major scale in like I can write a C harmonic minor scale in on a piece of sheet music, and then I can translate that into a Carnatic scale. And Carnatic music has it's rich in ragas, and ragas are basically a organization of melodic pitches, and they alter in terms of what we would call equivalents in Western music as half steps, whole steps, etc. Yeah, ragas are basically a collection of scales fundamentally that change in terms of pitches and the distance from one note to the next. So such similarities, I think that really propels people to start thinking about, is there a way we can bring these genres together? And there have been widespread efforts, there have been widespread movements to make people realize that such music worlds don't have to be kept separate. And I think if you're raised in a dual environment, it's a major factor to how you think, how you like what you think about music, like what your view is on various musical cultures. And supportive parents are definitely the catalyst. Supportive parents, friends and family and others who believe in you that you can do something wonderful. I think all of this, that will really help drive this sort of movement forward.
Your work spans various musical genres and cultures. So, how do you go about integrating different musical influences in your compositions? So, I know in the past we've talked about like you even thinking about including German music along with kind of like the Indian instrumentals. So, yeah, I'd love to just kind of hear your thoughts and perspectives on that.
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is it's a vision I have in mind, but I don't have a studio or anything like that just due to various other circumstances. I'm not like a super rich person who can possibly afford like a whole studio and all that stuff, and it's getting even more expensive to actually try to book someone else's. But as far as integrating different musical influences, the first thing I would say is to keep an open mind. And I strongly believe that, financial situations or just access to resources, I never thought that that should be like a defining barrier to doing something. There are a lot of people in the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area where I live where, I mean, nobody has money, like, to go to a studio all the time, like a major artist or a record label or anything like that. People just start to create their own record labels. People start to create their own platforms, their own brands. It really helps, to definitely start collaborating with other people because chances are you might end up actually making something wonderful out of that. It helps to listen to other artists who have also made such works that integrate different musical cultures, because listening to them really gives you an idea of how they weave different genres into their work. I remember like talking to you about the 100 Foot Journey. The soundtrack and score were composed by A.R. Rahman, and it does a phenomenal job of combining European genres, some European instruments with Indian instruments such as mridangam, sitar, etc. And how it weaves into the story, like the characters and all that stuff. I think that's the genius part of such music. The music definitely can relate to the characters, their backgrounds, their heritages. That is absolutely like it all comes together perfectly. And as I keep saying, it's really important to keep an open mind because there are so many musical instruments from all corners of the globe that can fit into certain categories like brass, woodwind, strings, etc. There are a lot of string instruments in Japan, woodwind instruments as well. And in the Western world, we see it violin, viola, cello, and bass, but those aren't the only four string instruments that fit. Like those aren't the only four that are out there in the world on a grand scale. You can put instruments, some native instruments from Japan, Europe, all of them would fit fine under those categories. It also helps to see what one instrument from one region matches to another in another region. So for example, mridangam from southern India, like for a Carnatic vocal concert, the mridangam is basically the bass. Like it basically keeps the tala, the rhythm. It also helps the vocalist, keep a steady beat and rhythm. And if we look into, for example, if we find an equivalent instrument like that in a country like Japan, I would say taiko is actually it really serves that same equivalent purpose. Yeah, I mean the instruments are made differently. I mean mridangam you have to sit down and play. Japanese taiko you have to stand and play. So definitely a lot of differences in there, but the essential purpose is the same. So you really ask yourself, like, what is an equivalent instrument you can find in another portion of the world? And when you look at an instrument that you have.
So you've collaborated with a number of artists and your work has been viewed or recognized by notable figures in the industry. Can you share some of the memorable experiences you've had from your collaborations and interactions with these individuals?
I have worked directly with many local artists in my hometown and around where I currently live. I'm currently part of a fusion band where I play mridangam out there, and it's a jazz oriented band. So we saxophonist, trombone, we see an electronic piano, a drum set, a bass, and a xylophone, and a couple flutes. Yeah, I think that's all of them. And this is going to be a new experience for all of us because we have our first concert coming up soon, and it's going to be a sold out packed crowd. So those factors, yeah, it's going to be an entirely new thing for all of us. I was also a visiting artist for the Durham Symphony Orchestra, so I had a wonderful opportunity to work with a renowned orchestral conductor and composer, and I think he was one of the topmost people I had a chance to work with directly. Like at that point, he was the biggest person I ever I ever had a chance to work for. But the way I try to connect with notable figures in the industry is through Instagram. And Instagram has been, it's grown into this megaphone for people. And it's been my megaphone for sharing music and other content with people. And since we can connect to anyone on Instagram and these figures have their own Instagram accounts, it provides a gateway for fans to share their work with these artists just by tagging them. And I do this regularly on Instagram, and I never aim to have like everyone view my work, but even at least one notable figure viewing it, that itself is a good step in my opinion. If you're going into this industry just for the numbers, like number of views, like number of people who see this, I think you're really doing it for the wrong reason. Because it's not the numbers that is the actual problem. It's a chemical inside your brain, psychologically speaking. It's a chemical inside your brain called dopamine that is going to hit whenever somebody happens to view your work. It's the way music is shared online. The most important thing I would say stick to your purpose and don't just, do something just to grab somebody's attention, some famous person's attention. A lot of people who go into this music industry, very, 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 very few people actually end up making it big because the world is, so many people. And if you see all of the people in India, for example, who've made it big, you think about A.R. Rahman, Shankar Hassan Loy, two of the biggest directors I listened to ever since I was a kid. But there's so many people out there who probably never had a chance. Like, it doesn't really currently promote a lot of young talent, and I feel that too many times it misses out on people who actually could do something wonderful, but they just never got the chance to do it. I think that is where things have to improve in this industry. But people really like to stick to some kind of winning formula and believe that the same people are gonna deliver the same amazing things. Personally, I would like to see a lot more younger talents starting to get these some bigger opportunities, some being given the chance, because why not give them the same chance that you gave to someone like A.R. Rahman, Shankar Hassan Loy? You gave them the chance, so why not give them the chance eventually?
I can understand kind of the frustration that younger artists experience as they're kind of trying to do these collaborations. I think the work that you have done with the artists in your local area is quite notable, and it's really quite exciting to get the opportunity to be able to perform in front of live audiences, both kind of in a band form as well as in an orchestra form. So that's pretty cool. I tried to pick up and play the guitar and I failed miserably. I couldn't keep a rhythm for the life of me. So I'm always in awe of musical artists who are able to actually develop that craft for themselves and be able to practice and get to a level where they're able to actually produce something that other people want to listen to. I think that's pretty amazing. As someone who's kind of younger, who's kind of still in the beginning of their career, but has kind of invested a lot in trying to get it off the ground. Can you tell us of some of the challenges that you faced in kind of developing that career as a musician and some of the lessons you've been learning?
I think one of the biggest challenges I've faced in recent years is actually balancing work and music life, because music is not a source of income for me right now. I rarely get paid to perform in places. I've probably only been paid like once or twice. That's it. Like I've never actually worked on contract before, so that's gonna be something that we'll end up doing sometime later. That'll be the first time for me. In the Raleigh-Durham Chapel Hill area, there are a number of people here who they've actually they've made it on the big shows like Super Singer, like all those shows that you see that are popular in India, but they live here in the United States and as actually here in Raleigh, and they live completely normal lives. It's not like they have security walking around them or they own a massive house or anything like that. They just live, middle class, normal lives like all of us, like normal suburb people. So the first thing I want to say is that music can be a source of income for everyone. Chances are very, very low it will be the thing that will pay your bills and all that stuff. And I've even had a couple colleagues like who've been through that phase in their life. Like it just wasn't paying their bills, anything like that. So they had to take up a different job. And taking a different job, like I'm not saying it's bad or anything. Like I work in the healthcare industry actually as my day job because that'll be a steady source of income for me. And it's a great industry to work in. Like I love the healthcare industry. I love everything that I'm learning there. But that is the reality of music. That is the reality of a music degree. Its chances are very very low. You can actually turn that into a life-saving income source because opportunities in the music industry, they don't come on a regular basis. It is just by luck. Like an offer, you can't expect an offer like every 2 weeks or anything like that. Like it's it's just up and down, up and down. So that's the biggest risk that comes with choosing a musical career. And all of my friends who play music, they also have day jobs as well. They're just like us. And even they also agree with the same. But balancing work, yes, I do keep a 9 to 5. Like I've been strict on myself to do a just 9 to 5, and then I try to relax for the rest of the day, do anything else I need to do. And I've tried to establish a routine where I actually play something for maybe half an hour, like a mridang or a piano. I only this year I was able to buy my first digital piano, not a keyboard, like an actual apartment sized piano. And that is what has really helped me at least keep my fingers steady, keep my fingers in touch. But at the end of the day, even if somebody famous sees it, it's not like I'm going to get invited to their studio the next day, nothing like that. That is just too far. And that is also really unrealistic. It's not like what you see in movies and all that stuff. And I think even social media sites like Instagram, they really fantasize. They really fantasize like certain ideas, because the one thing to keep in mind is that the realities can sometimes be very grim. Yeah, those are the challenges that I have been facing in the industry, but also everyone else faces it as well. Especially if you're just now getting started, you're not that far out of college, you're still trying to navigate life, trying to figure out what you really want to do. And yeah, you have a degree in something else, not even in music. So most artists out there, they actually have degrees in something else, not even music. They just happen to be famous musicians by chance, by luck. So yeah, there's a lot of risk involved in it, but I still believe like just make something, just make something wonderful. Just make something you believe is wonderful, because if you actually really believe in something, then it can make a really great impact, because ideas are fragile in the sense that they can be forgotten easily, or they can translate into something truly amazing. And the greatest thing about music is that you can create an idea, and it's not like you need to bring it to a table or something that everybody debates or argues about it. Especially if you're like a solo artist, if you're like a whole package, like composer, director, producer, etc. Yeah, your idea is less likely to be shut down by people. It's not like the corporate world where you have to follow a certain strategy or business model. The music industry doesn't really have a model when it comes to ideas.
I do want to highlight everything that you have been able to do so far, right? So you have been able to create all of these albums by yourself, and then put them up on Spotify and all of these additional kind of platforms. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes into even kind of producing that. So what has that process been like for you? And how do you build it into your schedule?
For music wise, actually making something, I've been off for maybe a year by now, but prior to that, I was building it into my schedule. Like I would work on it for maybe 1 or 2 hours over the weekend. I'd maybe do it like for 30 minutes on a weeknight. Yeah, I mean, if you do it a little bit like every single day, you don't find yourself, piling up a mountain of work. The process is, I think the first thing I try to do is actually think of a title, and then I try to make something out of it. And I try to think about what have I actually been hearing? Like what have I actually been what sorts of chords and melodies are at least memorable? What is something that might possibly stay in the listener's ears, And like I just try not to set my standards too high. Like, yeah, I'm strict on myself at times, but there's so many great musicians out there, like Mozart and Beethoven. It's not like you're gonna hear people singing their symphonies in public or like dancing to them or anything like that. That's, I guess, different genres have different effects, but what I try to do out of all of these experiences, from all of these experiences, is think about like what chords, what melody might sound like listenable, like something people might actually be encouraged to listen to instead of just stopping midway. I cannot tell you how many songs that I've stopped midway that just didn't stick with me at all. It's very difficult to know like exactly like what's the pulse of your audience, what is the what will they like most. It is like a gambling industry in the sense that you just don't know what's going to work until you do it. I mean, nobody knows what's going to become a hit overnight, what's going to become a sleeper hit, something that gains recognition after years of publication. I know a couple songs that became hits overnight, propelled an artist's career, and some that just became sleeper hits like overnight, like after a year or two of it being released, it somehow gains popularity somewhere. So the creative process is first, try to create a set of chords, try to create some kind of melody. The more challenging part is the transitions from one section to the next, because I do follow a defined structure. You have a main chorus and you go to a first verse, then you go to a main chorus, maybe a second verse, and then you go back to the main melody. That's how most Bollywood songs are actually structured. Most songs now, they just do main chorus, first verse, then they go to the main chorus again. So it's definitely shortened in recent times, but the structure hasn't changed actually. So try to follow basically a certain structure, I would say, like a common structure out there that lots of people actually use. And as for mixing wise, it's very important, I would say, to keep testing your own ears, like test like your headphones, test like what you hear in your headphones, and think about, okay, how would somebody else be hearing this? Like, would they be able to hear the same thing I'm hearing? And the thing that you can really get tricked in is that you're focused on hearing one thing, like so that you actually prime your listening. You actually prime your listening to actually look for that one instrument that you want to be heard. But if someone else is listening to it, like are they likely to even pick it up? Like, because it's not something they're going to prepare for. Okay, I need to prime my listening to hear this. They're just going to listen anyway. Like they're not going to think about it or worry about it. So those are the big challenges that I deal with.
I think that many artists kind of go through periods where they're very much like focused on their creative process, and then other periods where they're more focused on marketing their product, or more focused on like reaching a wider audience, or playing live rather than doing kind of studio recordings. I think it's always valuable to kind of hear all sides of it, especially those who are interested in music would find kind of your process very valuable to know about, because it's not something that like people readily kind of talk about in public spaces. Most of the time, the attention is much more focused on being a celebrity rather than like the craft of the work that you're producing.
I also think part of the celebrity culture is that a number of celebrities, they literally ride the wave of one hit single out there, and that wave will last like maybe 1 or 2 years, like maybe 3 years max. But after that, what else do you do? Like, what's the next thing? Like, what are you gonna do now? That's the challenge. I would say it's very important to keep a balance of things. I'd say this year I've been focused more on like marketing stuff, because in reality, if I spent this year writing another album, the outcome wouldn't change. Artists have to focus on a lot of things, like not just creating music, but how do you market it? Like, you have to work with different agencies. You have to work with in case somebody sues you for your work, like, are you prepared to even handle a legal case? Like, do you at least know like a good lawyer? Are you able to access a good lawyer? So many artists go through that. Ed Sheeran recently did that. He recently won a case. And artists also, once artists start to realize, we've seen artists expanding their ventures, into business deals, to keep making more money. You see artists like creating, like sponsoring products, or even creating their own lines, like Selena Gomez did. Artists venture out, like, on several different ways to market themselves. It's not just promoting their own work, but also trying to get their face like seen, trying to get their face well known, popular, recognized. So many different things they can branch into. And that's another challenge young people like me are facing, young people like me who like we don't have a large fan following, nothing like that. But the real question is like, who's gonna help you out there? You have to find the right agent, you have to find the right people. Like I think the most important thing, the other big challenge is finding people who are going to be supportive of you. Because I mean, one mistake I've made in the past, like I've never worked by contract, and so that's how a number of my opportunities have just sort of died. Unless you can find somebody who actually will care about you, if you can find a way to make that happen, that is how you'll actually go forward. Because opportunities in the music industry, it's like, oh, you don't want it, you don't want it, you don't want it. Yeah, we'll just give it to this guy. We'll just give it to this guy. We just need this done. It's very hard to gain an opportunity, but it's very easy to lose an opportunity. So that is what I've been learning over like the past year, especially as I do more marketing. The most important thing is to just keep your head up. Like there will be something out there. There will be a solution. You don't expect everything to happen within the next 1 year of your life. Yeah, you just have to take it one step at a time.
Yeah, especially I think it's valuable as for someone early in their career to kind of recognize a lot of those things, and it can be daunting slash. And I can imagine kind of the envy and and seeing artists your age make it onto a big stage when you're developing so much of your craft and you're like, what is the difference? Like, why does that individual kind of get the spotlight, whereas I don't. And being able to kind of come back and understand a lot of these things is really valuable. And I think you've kind of hit on kind of this last question I wanted to end with, but I'd love for you to expand on it a little bit more, which is what guidance would you give to other musicians based on your own experience so far?
I would say never expect instant success. Never expect to make just one thing and everybody will somehow know you. That will never happen in life. That's just how the world is. The biggest advice I would give, and the advice that I followed, is if you know the company Nike, their slogan is just do it. And that's just what I do. Just do it. And never settle. The world thrives on new ideas. And in any industry in the world, ideas are very fragile. If an idea somehow disappears or leaves the mind, so does something that could have a very strong impact. So that's why I emphasize, write ideas down in notebooks, Word documents, just write it anywhere that you at least don't lose sight of it. So if you come back, maybe even 5 or 10 years later down the road, you come back to this, you thought, oh yeah, I remember that. Maybe I can do something with it. You preserve the opportunity to make something that's truly amazing, because the brain can only hold so much. And that is the one thing I would say, just never lose sight of any ideas you have. And if you believe in a particular idea or concept, build on it. Just do it. Just build on it. Because the world thrives on diversity, and part of diversity is new ideas. The other advice that I would give them is never forget, where you come from, because it's very easy to get carried away with the media publicity, the celebrity publicity that the music, film, and media industry, all these industries combined, come with. People work for years to try to make it that big, let alone, win a Grammy or Oscar or any sort of award. But you have to really ask yourself, how is all of this happening? Like, did you really do this all by yourself, or did your friends and family help you throughout? And something I've been really emphasizing to all my friends, especially this past year, is, I mean, I have a number of trophies at home, no, but those trophies would not have been possible. Like those trophies wouldn't be on my mantle, my fireplace mantle, if it weren't for the amazing support of my parents and my teachers, music teachers, and everyone else who knew me and who said something encouraging to me positively. Long story short, I would say most important thing is to always remember that friends and family, teachers, they're more important than awards, trophies, and fame.
Because they support you and they've kind of recognized and helped you build your talent.
Thanks, Arpita.